taxi driver. I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry.
Are you looking at me?
I'm going to tell my mom if you look at me.
What do you know about two certified bangers? PhantasmaCast.
Welcome back to PhantasmaCast, folks. I'm Jake.
And I'm Derek.
And this week, we're going to do another tale of two Toms.
A singular Tom, two movies.
Yes, one Tom, two certified bangers. We're going to be talking about 1988's Big and 1989's The Burbs. So, Derek, why these two movies together?
The initial idea behind the pairing was, let's talk about some early Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
But not like too early, because then I think that's a little more niche. So it's kind of like after he had his initial stardom.
After he was already kind of in some stuff,
Yeah.
right? I was actually watching In Search of Darkness Part 2 last night. I just put it on to have in the background whenever I'm doing shit.
You always do that.
And they were talking about Tom Hanks's first movie, which was it's like a Christmas horror movie. It's called He Knows You're Alone.
Okay. Is this like a TV movie?
No, an actual movie.
Wow.
Movie, 1980. We'll get to this a little later, but like in the interview, they say his character was originally scripted to be killed off.
Oh.
But they were like, he's just so likable. He's just so good. We can't kill him off. And I think that's something that maybe plagues Tom Hanks's career going forward.
Yeah, plagues him into success.
I think these two movies, they come out consecutively, right? Burbs 88, Big 88, Burbs 89.
Yeah, I think there was one more in between, and I'll look that up while you're.
And I think actually Big had been released during the production of The Burbs. So these are two movies that are they're kind of an inflection point for Tom Hanks. They're the movies that basically are the movies after he is this huge star, the Tom Hanks that we know today.
Yeah. The movie between, by the way, was called Punchline, where he plays a stand-up comedian, like a up-and-coming stand-up comedian, and Sally Field is also in it.
I've never heard of it.
Also doing stand-up comedy. Yeah, I'd never heard of it either until doing this episode. It seems middling at best. It was definitely like these two were the ones that have stuck around the most from that point in his career.
And then she goes on to play his mom.
Wait, when?
Sally Field?
Yeah. Oh, in Forrest Gump?
Forrest Gump, yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, just a few years later.
You said that, I was like, am I fucking wrong? So, these are two Tom Hanks movies that just kind of catapult his career, and he doesn't, look back, right?
Right.
Before this, he had been in, I think, is Bachelor Party before this?
Yeah, so if we go like the common movie that came out that everyone's like, whoa, have you heard of this Hanks guy?
Yeah.
Was Splash. In
It made a
84.
splash.
It did make a splash. And then the same year, Bachelor Party came out. So those were probably filmed at the same time.
Oh, and The Money Pit, too.
Yeah. I think real heads know about The Money Pit.
Yeah.
But then if you see all these other movies in between, I feel like those weren't really the best. Those weren't peak Hanks.
You're
really.
not thinking of Tom Hanks.
No. The Man with One Red Shoe, Volunteers. Nothing in Common felt like a kind of an awards bait kind of thing because it was Jackie Gleason's last movie. And then Every Time We Say Goodbye was like some weepy like World War II thing. And then Dragnet with Dan Aykroyd, where they played like cops, and Tom Hanks is the the more laid back cop. Dan Aykroyd's like the straight laced guy. But that's a big reason why it took so long to make Big, actually, because it was greenlit in the early 80s.
Oh,
Yeah.
and he just got busy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're like, he's our guy, so we got to.
That only did good things for Big, because then, it kind of helped market that movie.
Yeah.
Getting a bigger star in it.
So I could dive into Bigs right now. Just
Yeah.
springboarding off that
Tell
if
us
you want.
about Big. What did you find out about Big?
I'll start by reading the back of the box.
Because he owns it.
Yeah. And you should too. Okay. So Tom Hanks received his first Tom Hanks received his first Best Actor Oscar nomination for his captivating performance in this hilarious, disarming, and timeless film for dreamers of all ages. All 12-year-old Josh Baskin, Hanks wants to do is be big. But when his wish is granted beyond his wildest dreams, Josh finds a new face in the mirror. His own, at age 30. Now, aided by his boisterous best friend, he'll have to keep the secret of his true age as he tries to fill his own oversized shoes. But as his innocent charms help him rise to the top of the adult world, Josh will face the biggest decision of his life. Return to his own age or remain big forever. Yeah, that is Big. And I wrote a similar version of it. And I'm glad that they called out Billy, because I think he is an important part of reminding you that this kid is indeed a kid. And he plays off of him very well.
And the fact that, like, when he becomes an adult, like, his child best friend is the only support structure he has.
Yeah, that he's, like, allowed to have.
Yeah.
In, like, the logic of the movie.
Yeah. He's just, like, visiting him in his, like, seedy hotel in the city.
Yeah. It's like, look at this place. It looks nice. The St. James Hotel. And he's like, no, it doesn't. Is his response. I love that. That's like such a big kid response to be like, this looks nice. Like, no.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Cries
Don't lie to
himself
me.
sleep.
Yeah. But like I said, Big was the first one to get greenlit, but we did have to wait until Hanks became available because they're like, he's our guy. They actually screen tested Robert De Niro.
No.
Which is weird, right?
Yeah, no.
I can't see it.
Robert De Niro does not have that, like, he's too hard. He's too hard.
Yeah, especially even in like the early 80s. Like,
yeah.
We'd have to be like the early 70s to even mildly believe that De Niro is like childlike in any way, really.
Yeah, unless like the original concept behind it was like he gets turned. He's a child turned into a man, and it's turned him insane. He's gonna fucking kill everyone.
Taxi driver. I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry.
Are you looking at me?
I'm gonna tell my mom if you look at me. But
that's why he's not in that movie.
They told a bunch of other people, "Hey, we're thinking of getting Bob for it," and everyone's like, "Taxi driver."
Gets left out of the
So after it was greenlit, as is when you hear about a good story in Hollywood, they'll copy the shit out of it. So there's like an explosion of body swapping movies.
Freaky Friday.
That was actually before it. But in the 80s alone, it was like late 70s, I want to say, for Freaky Friday, the original with like Jodie Foster. And I forget the other woman's name, but Jodie Foster's in that one. But there was like 80s specific ones that were trying to ride the coattails of this while it was still in like pre-production hell, kind of. And I'll I want to go through them because I thought they were wild. So we'll start in 84 with All of Me, which is Steve Martin as a lawyer is possessed by Lily Tomlin, a dying millionaire who wants to like perform this ritual to like put her consciousness in like a younger woman's body.
Yeah.
I put the trope as Orientalism because this ritual is like they have to fly in like a Tibetan monk to put her soul in a bowl. and then the bowl falls out a window and hits Steve Martin.
Okay, yeah. So it's like anything remotely exotic is magical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
I
one
want to
sounded
see
wild.
this movie.
That one sounded wild. And I put it in there as like a body swap, even though she's technically like possessing him.
Yeah.
I think the body swap is a little more loose than just a 1-for-1 switch. The internet will let you believe differently. They'll be like, actually, Big is an age swap movie. I just don't like saying that, so I won't.
Nah. Because like if Lily Tomlin's, let's say her soul goes into Steve Martin, little Tom Hanks's soul goes into adult Tom Hanks's body. So I think it works.
Yeah. And be like, well, where was Big Tom Hanks? There wasn't one. It just like shut up, enjoy the movie is what I want to say.
Yeah.
So that was one of the earlier ones that may or may not have been inspired by Big, but then this one definitely was. Like Father, Like Son in '87. Mm-hmm. I put the trope as business dad. Dudley Moore is a doctor dad. He drinks a brain swap serum that switches bodies with his like slacker teen son, Kirk Cameron.
Okay.
Like Father, Like Son. And that one does occasionally come up. Some people still have a fondness for it.
And the experience turned him into an end of the world evangelical.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if I could look back and find Kirk Cameron all that funny. Dudley Moore, sure.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, so the year that Big came out, there was 2 body swaps. Vice versa. Including Big.
Okay.
Yeah. So vice versa. 88. I put, this is both tropes actually. This is business dad and Orientalism. So
it is that like 80s thing of like, we're going to take what worked before and just mash them together, you know?
Like we're not doing as bad Yellowface anymore. Okay. So we're actually improving. So Judge Reinhold is the business dad.
I've seen this one.
Okay, you have seen
in
this
my
one.
head, I was like, "There's a Judge Reinhold one. I know there is."
Yeah,
Okay.
the cover is him like skateboarding on a desk, because that's what you do when you skateboard. Judge Reinhold is a business dad, and Fred Savage is like his 11-year-old, and they both touch a magical Tibetan skull, if you can believe it or not.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Tibet, that's where the magic is. So then they swap. The last one. Actually, not the last one. The last major one, I should say, is called 18 Again. And again, with an exclamation mark to make it different from the more recent, like Zac Efron, 17 Again.
I was going to say, wasn't there a Zac Efron one?
Yeah.
They just made him 1 year younger.
Yeah. They're like,
fucking Hollywood,
it's awesome.
dude.
I love that. This is the trope of business grandpa, actually. So George Burns is a business grandpa, and him and his grandson, Charlie Schlatter, who, when I looked up, like his big thing was he did a Ferris Bueller TV series. He was Ferris Bueller in the Ferris Bueller TV series.
Oh, okay. The one everyone remembers.
The one everyone remembers. Yeah. They swap bodies after a car accident.
Okay.
That's weird.
Okay.
And they just, that's the trope of like just bumping into someone and swapping. I wrote this down as a bonus just in case this is too much of a tangent, but I thought it was too juicy to not include. Dream a Little Dream. Have you heard of this one?
No.
It's a two Coreys movie.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're talking double features, we got to talk double Coreys.
License to Drive is the other one. Yeah.
That's the good one, in my opinion. the only good one, really. But that was, License to Drive was before this. So Dream a Little Dream, 89. The trope is being too damn convoluted. Like, it's really hard to understand this movie whatsoever from what I could glean. But it's with Jason Robards as an older man. Mm-hmm. He swaps bodies, I put question mark, with Corey Feldman during a meditative trance session during a thunderstorm, I think.
At least it's not Oriental.
Yeah. But then it's also just too much, like, what? I think he's like trying to get on the same like frequency as his wife so they can share like a dream consciousness after they both die, which is kind of sweet, but it's what? It's like almost too much to put into a simple like body swap comedy movie. And I've seen a couple clips from it. It's rough, man. It's really rough.
Okay,
It looks like
that one.
It looks like they're just reading cue cards. Kinda. But I mentioned that because they did a Dream a Little Dream 2.
Oh no.
Yeah. A direct to like DVD sequel like 6 years later that just has the two Coreys from it. They're ostensibly
The two Coreys were in the part 2.
Yeah. It looks like a weird vanity project by them.
Yeah, I was gonna say no Coreys in this one, right?
You're like, hopefully no Coreys? Yeah. No, the Coreys stay.
Yeah, they needed the money.
And we get the treat of Corey Feldman's music being featured in that one.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, God. And this is arguably the worst one of the list and the only one with a sequel. Okay. There was another extra, and we can totally cut this out if we want, but another extra thing I found was this guy who only does body swapping movies. His name is James A. Ward, and I'm not like making fun of him really if he ever finds this. I just thought it was interesting as I'm like looking up like, okay, what do we consider body swap movies? This guy did a feature film in 2009 called Identity Theft, where they like buy some lotto tickets. I don't know how they swap, but there's a body swap element to it. His next feature that he did in 2013 was called The Hit Girl, where a hitman touches a statue and becomes a teenage girl and still has to finish his mission. The teenage girl is 30 years old. Then there's, right after that, the body swap workout.
No.
I don't even want to explain that one.
He did. Oh, okay. I'm looking at his IMDb page now too. I was like, but he did Lost in Translation, not connecting the dots that he did not do that movie. It's actually Lost in Transformation.
Yep.
This guy went into Hollywood with one goal in mind, and it was to bring the world as much body swap cinema.
Can you go ahead and read the most recent thing?
Quarantine Leap.
Yep.
This is let's see, 2020. Yes, love the cover art. After unadvisedly using the transverse device to swap bodies with someone to go on vacation for the day during the quarantine, the Leaper, capital L, not to be confused with the Looper,
Not to be confused with this entire idea.
finds that he's now swapping bodies every 24 hours with a random person. Dude, my guy did a COVID movie.
It's a series.
Did a COVID series, and it looks like it's still going.
Yeah. Did you see how many episodes there are? 90.
No, where is it playing, dude?
I kind of want to check this out. Yeah, sorry for the capital L joke, but it was there. I had to take it. But while I was researching him, I was like, okay, he did something notable. Quantum Leap. And then I had to triple take it.
Dude, he did this. It's the same thing that happened with Lost in Translation for me. He's this guy. He's mastered the social media clickbait strategy,
Or like adjacent SEO. He's like, you've heard of Lost in Translation. Lost in Transformation.
Dude, what is this man's career? I'm fascinated.
Okay, I'm glad you're fascinated. Okay, I'm glad we went down that rabbit hole because I was like, we need to talk about the body swap man if we're talking about body swap.
James
movies.
A. Ward.
Give him an A Ward. Yeah, I looked at the camera for that one. Sorry. You can't edit around that one. So circling back to Big and like why we still talk about that and we don't really talk about those other movies. Like why did Big succeed, really? Here's my two reasons. I wonder if you have different reasons with your experience of it. I said the simplicity of the story. It's just such a universal desire for like a kid to want to be big, you know, and the perspective of the movie definitely takes a kid's approach. It's the jokes are at the adult's expense. It's never like, oh, this dumb kid, really. We always feel for that perspective, which is beautiful. And I think it's probably missing from the other movies that ostensibly take an adult perspective and are laughing at the kid. Like, I think Roger Ebert wrote in his review that Big is the only one of all of those movies that can be identified by a kid, at least. And he'd be like, that one.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So that was brilliant, I think.
I think Big, two things that it has going for it is that it's it's a I want to go home movie. So he knows what his destination is. He knows basically what he has to do. And they do it rather quickly, right? They're trying to find that like fortune teller machine.
Yeah, the Zoltar speaks.
The Zoltar machine. But you know, they're like, it's gonna be a couple weeks before we can tell you where it is, you know?
At least 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I said.
So he's like, well, what do I do? I got to get a job, obviously, because I'm an adult. And so it's such a kid thing to be like, I want to work at a toy company.
Yeah. Yeah. When they're going through the papers, through the job listings.
Yeah.
And they're like, engineer. No. Something. No. Computer programmer. He's like, no, go back to that. Okay, you and your computers. Computer programmer at Macmillan Toys. They both light up. And I think he would still kind of light up if a job opportunity at a toy factory.
Right. And then I love too when he gets his first paycheck. You've got John Lovitz on the other side being like, this fucking place.
He's like, $187? Yeah, they really know how to screw you.
Yeah. Which was that was my first reaction to getting my first paycheck too. You know, it's like this pittance. But it's so exciting, right? Because you know,
it's official.
You're used to getting like $5 from your parents here and there, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I would agree. It is a movie that is very like skillfully and accurately made from a kid's perspective, right?
Yes.
Everything that happens. And I have to wonder how much of it like Tom Hanks brings to the table, right?
I think all of it. Mm-hmm. Really. Not that none of the actors did anything, but to be so consistently like believably heartfelt.
This is how a
innocent.
kid would react to XYZ situation.
Yeah, the mask never like slips.
Yeah.
Like when he's in the interview, right? And Susan comes in, he like leans back and like checks out her butt, but he does it like a kid would. He's like, oh, like a butt, and not like, damn girl, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So even though that's probably creepy by today's standards, there's still from that perspective of how a kid would do it.
Yeah, it's a movie. It's not a movie that like is, you know, it's not dirty when it comes to the sex stuff. It's like the way that like she's essentially a character that like it's hinted at she's like fucking her way to the top kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very 80s perspective on women in the workplace, but and so I really like that scene where she's trying to seduce him because she can sense that he is being lifted up.
Yeah.
And he's just like he's like, you want to sleep over? And she's like, yeah. And then he just like wants to play games with her all night.
Yeah. You know? I put that as like one of my favorite scenes that emphasizes that childlikeness that it brings to an adult situation.
Because he also isn't going into these interpersonal relationships with ulterior motives either.
No.
You know, he just wants to play. He just wants to, you know, be a kid.
Yeah. He's so clueless, and the movie does milk that cluelessness for all it's got.
Yeah.
Like leading up to going to his apartment, they're getting out of the limo, getting into the elevator, and Susan asks, have you always lived alone? You know, that's her. You can already sense like that's her goal. Just like trying to see if there's another woman involved. Have you always lived alone? He's like, not always.
And so she's like, oh, so you're divorced.
Yeah.
You know?
She says, oh, was it recent?
Yes.
He's like, yeah. He's not lying.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, well, give yourself a couple of days. It'll pass. He says, they say it could take 6 weeks.
This movie so perfectly plays with like dramatic irony, you know, like the audience is in on the joke. The adults in the movie are probably the most clueless people.
Yeah.
Despite being the ones that I think it's cool that they put him in this corporate atmosphere where everyone's trying to cut each other's throats to get to the top, and he just haplessly rises to the top because of, you know, his innocence.
Yeah.
You know.
I decided to check out the extended cut of the movie that comes on the Blu-ray.
Which we didn't watch.
Yeah. I'm so glad we didn't, because it sucks.
What does it add?
20 needless minutes to it. It is, almost a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
The extended cut. There are very few things I like about it, and I'll focus on those before I go to the things I don't like, because I don't want to dwell too much about what I don't like about the movie.
Right.
But I want to talk about them in the sense that this movie's so good because they did make the wise choice to remove some of this stuff and maintain some of that innocence rather than the weird, jaded adult.
Oh, does he
stuff.
like start leaning into that? Does he start to get jaded?
Not him specifically, but let's start with the good.
Okay.
So some of the good, they focus on Billy and Susan a lot more. So for example, when there was like scenes of Billy just in the city with him, you were like, what does this guy tell his parents? Like how is he always up in New York all the time? There's a scene after they initially come home at the very beginning of the movie, and we get a little snapshot of each of their home life. We see his dad like move the crib into the room for Josh's little sister. Mm-hmm. And I was, at that moment, I was like, he has a dad? Because he's only ever featured in the carnival scene.
His dad.
Never again.
Yeah. You only ever see his mom.
Yeah. So I was like, Dad's here? Holy crap. I forgot about that. And then we go to Billy's home. And boy, that thing is a nightmare. So he definitely has a hectic home life. He's
He's like neglected.
Kind of. Like it's just the family is around like a dinner table, and there's like 4 other like siblings, I want to say, older siblings, and dad. And they're all saying nothing because mom and grandma is smoking at the table. Mom's just like, I work all day and I see no appreciation from any of you, you slobs. None of you lifts a finger to help me. And Billy is just going into the kitchen, bringing the meatloaf out of the oven and bringing it to the table.
Yeah. And
like kind of like waiting for the lecture to be done.
Yeah.
And then he just takes a plate and goes to his room. I was like, that says a lot.
These are what happened behind the closed doors of suburbia.
Yeah.
You know?
And I was like, oh, that would have been so great. I guess it is a bit of a downer.
Yeah.
But it explains why he's just willy-nilly going to New York all the time. Nobody would notice.
Yeah. He's not being locked down by his parents because they don't. Maybe not that they don't care, but they're not present enough.
Yeah, not present. Yeah. And then there's a lot more phone calls with Billy, like trying to call up numbers to find the Zoltar machine.
Okay.
He calls the secretary a few more times in this. And it's just kind of needless. It's just the movie's like reminding you that Billy exists. And I'm like, I know he exists. We don't need to see him this much.
Yeah. And, you know, it makes sense as he starts to fall more in love with Susan, that like the best friend gets kind of pushed to the wayside, you know, and then it like it's more of a romantic comedy, I think, in that sense. So we know he's there, and we're kind of bothered by the fact that like his support system is now being replaced by grown woman.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think it's more natural in the theatrical cut of the movie because it just kind of happens. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of like real life. It just kind of happens. He's not going out of his way to ignore Billy. But with those extra scenes added in, it makes it feel like he is. So you're kind of like, Josh, you dick. Yeah. Instead of being on his side.
You can't make Tom Hanks look like a dick. So
So stop.
Get those scenes out of here.
And there's even like a scene where I was like, oh my God, this is so unnecessary of Billy. He calls and he's like, oh, you have the Zoltar machine? And they're like, yeah, man, it's over here at Sea Point, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Hangs up. And then another scene happens or something. And then he shows up in the elevator. and like pulls it out of his pocket and goes, boom, it's here, Josh. Which I was like, okay, that I don't like that, because then in the actual cut of the movie, it goes from Billy talking to Josh's mom across the windows, and he's like, oh, I hope he comes home. And he's like, well, you'll see her. And then it cuts to him in the elevator, and then goes, here it is. Mm-hmm. So I like that connective tissue better of like, dude, your mom misses you, rather than I found it, by the way. That doesn't have the same landing as your mom needs you.
And that to me is like the difference between a writer trying to tell the story, competently, and a director and editor kind of saying, no, we don't need to see that. It'll have bigger impact maybe if we don't,
Yeah, like these things are actually so strongly written that it's overwritten. So
Right.
let's get rid of it.
Right.
The last scene that was like, oh God, this sticks out like a sore thumb, was after Josh tells Susan, I'm a 13-year-old kid. I need to get back. And she's like, I don't know how much I believe that.
Yeah.
She looks in his wallet after he like goes to the bathroom or something. She finds the Zoltar card. She's like, that's weird. She finds a baseball card that's like folded up, and in the middle of it is like a big wad of chewing gum.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
What's that about? And
He was a kid and didn't know what to do with his gum.
didn't know what to do with his gum. So they add a scene where they both go to this magazine vendor guy again. And she goes, hey, do you mind just getting me a pack of gum? It's a test. And he goes,
Okay.
Yeah, here. And he gets like Bubblicious. It's like, oh, that child getting the sugar gum. And I was like, I didn't know what to make of that. I'm like, that one is kind of laughing at him, like stupid kid kind of thing. Uh-huh. And again, that I feel like that negatively impacts Susan's character. It's like, how much proof do you need before you believe this?
But also, like the first time you went to this man's apartment, he wanted to jump on a fucking trampoline with you.
He wants to play pinball, no quarters, sodas, no quarters.
But the gum, the Bubblicious is the last thing you need.
Hold up.
Yeah. This fucking child.
You're ready to get piped down, and he's like, top bunk. That didn't set off your alarm. So yeah, that was it for my journey of like the extended cut of the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad they removed all that, because like as is, Big is just a really good example of what the actor can bring to elevate the material. And he just brings that like wonderful joy and innocence of a child. And I'm so glad that like it has stuck around and people still continue to watch it and connect with it. And I hope they will continue to do that for years to come.
Because it is such an endearing movie and story. Like the casting decision to put Tom Hanks in this role for this character, right?
Yeah.
He is very relatable, and like you feel bad for him when he's sad. You know? So you buy into his story and his needs, and it's just a perfect alignment.
But now, after Big, he did The Burbs, right? So
yes.
Lead us into The Burbs.
Tom Hanks
Heard of him.
stars in The Burbs, a comedy about a suburbanite whose plans for a peaceful vacation at home are disturbed by a creepy new family on the block. Much to the disappointment of his wife, Carrie Fisher, Ray Peterson, Hanks, and his three neighbors set out to investigate the next-door residence after they begin to observe strange happenings. Set in an average neighborhood that is anything but ordinary, The Burbs blends slapstick comedy and spine-thrilling mystery and is superbly directed by cult filmmaker Joe Dante. The Burbs is one of those movies that came out just like a couple of years before I was born. So by the time I was a kid, it was on TV a lot, and my parents had it like recorded on a VHS tape.
Oh, cool.
So it was just like a staple in my household. I love how funny it is.
Yeah, I watched it a bunch too. I think we had like the VHS copy or like a recorded copy too.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, even as like an early 20 something, if I reference the Burbs, people will be like, "You know about that?" I'm like, it's great. Why wouldn't I know about it?
Like the slapstick, you know, the movie calls itself a slapstick comedy. It's true, right? So that translates well for kids. And I think Joe Dante is a you know, he makes movies with blood and gore and, you know, deal with adult themes. But I think like his movies like work for kids as much as they do for adults in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Gremlins is scary. If you're a kid and you're watching Gremlins, you're creeped out by those little fucking things.
Yeah, like, oh, Gizmo. And then, oh, God, when they show up.
But it's also funny, too, and because of the slapstick.
For sure.
And you have a hero in Gizmo, too, right? He's the not scary one. Yeah. I think Burbs is a movie that like works for kids as well as adults. You know, a lot of the comedy I think comes from Rick Ducombe's art character.
Oh yeah, he's such a chatterbox.
He's so fucking funny. Dude.
But if you knew this guy, you would probably not like him. You'd be like,
fucking hate him.
You'd be like, Art, shut the hell up.
Shut the fuck up. And then Bruce Dern is really funny in this movie too.
Yeah, as like the cranky vet across the street. Yeah.
Yes, who's like way into being a vet. Yeah. I actually think Rumsfeld was my favorite character when I grew up.
Okay.
Because I don't know. I grew up with like in my childhood like mythology there are a lot of these kind of like aging Vietnam veterans that like we knew. And so I could like that was the one I easily connected with, you know, because I didn't grow up in the suburbs. I didn't know what this place was.
Right.
But the army vet that like, you know, made a connection. But I love Tom Hanks too, because so like the Burbs was a staple, but also Turner and Hooch was a staple.
Okay.
And Turner and Hooch came out, I think, right after the Burbs.
Right after, yeah.
You know, but I actually did not see Big until I was older. So it wasn't a part of like my Tom Hanks, you know, viewing. The origin of the Burbs. I watched the commentary track and unfortunately, fortunately, but unfortunately, it only had commentary from the screenwriter, Dana Olson.
Okay.
So I wish Joe Dante were in there too, but you know, learned a lot of things from the screenwriter too. So a lot of this is from like a screenwriter's perspective, but I have a little trivia treat for you about the movie.
I'm wiping my hands.
So Dana Olson, screenwriter, the first couple of scripts he had produced were low budget comedy spoofs of horror films.
Makes complete sense.
Not really specific films, but more like the genre. Like the movie that he made before the Burbs is called Wacko, and it is a spoof of like the slasher genre.
Oh, cool.
Before Scream, you know, like it had a kind of self-referential kind of lilt to it. So anyway, he wanted to do a comedy version of Rear Window. So he wrote a 30-minute pilot called Bay Window.
Okay. I will pause real quickly to say, guess he's a Hitchcock fan because Wacko feels like Psycho. So, all right,
yeah.
Continue.
Exactly. And so he couldn't sell it as a pilot.
Okay.
So he developed it into a feature. When he sold that feature, the production company said, Bay Window sounds like it's set on the sea. So let's change it.
Sounds a little romantic.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, a bay window is like a type of window, not where it's set. But so they renamed it to The Burbs. So
Much better.
The Burbs was originally conceived as a kind of homage to Rear Window, in that, you know, you have this character who's looking out onto his neighbors and kind of, putting his nose in everyone's business.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really funny that like it has a genesis in a Hitchcock movie.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because I feel like they dialed it back to not be so overt. Like he has like an injury keeping him home. In the movie, he's on vacation.
Yes, he's on vacation. And another little piece of trivia from the screenplay, in one version of the screenplay, it's actually he reveals to Carrie Fisher at the end of the movie that he's not on vacation. He actually got fired from his job.
Yeah, they filmed that. It was in the alternate ending.
Oh, really?
I checked it out just a little bit.
But, I think it maybe works a little better. 'Cause I think he plays it burnt out better than I got fired, But watching the commentary track, I learned that the movie was produced during the 1988 Writers Guild strike.
Oh.
Which I think is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, they sold the movie and it went into production before, like at the cutoff, right? Before the cutoff of the strike. So they could actually start filming the movie, but the screenwriter could not be on set to do rewrites as they needed them.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah.
So what Joe Dante decided to do was film the movie in sequence so that the actors, in lieu of having a screenwriter writing new pages every day, the actors could improvise, right? And so when you improvise, you can, when you shoot in order, you can improvise, and then later in the movie, like you can keep continuity because what had happened before.
Yeah, you can set things up to pay off later as opposed to retroactively shoehorning something.
Exactly.
That's smart.
And they could also do a fair amount of improvising because they actually had a really easy shoot. They shot on the Universal backlot. And fun fact, Ray's house in was it Ray's house or the Klopex house? One of the houses was on Mockingbird Lane. It was the Munsters house.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
It's really funny because it's like one of the most like famous houses in like Universal television history. Like it was used for a lot of these like shows. Yeah. And then they fucking blew it up at the end of this movie. But the second reason that it's important that the writer couldn't do any rewrites is because of who they cast as the main character of the movie.
Oh,
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
The original ending has Ray Peterson being put into an ambulance, and then surprise, the Klopex are there, and they drive off with him, and he's never seen again, presumably murdered by the Klopex.
No.
Yeah. See,
I would never accept that.
So they basically were like, they had to ask themselves, is it wise to kill off America's sweetheart in the follow-up to his breakout role?
That'd be funny if they just use a picture of young Josh and Big. Like, do you want to kill this boy? Yeah. Do you want to kill this boy?
Do you want to see this boy on a milk carton? No. Larry.
You want to kill this boy, Larry?
So, they couldn't rewrite the ending. In the editing, they came up with a new ending where like they do try to drive away with him, but we get the real ending where they fly out the back of the ambulance and it's revealed that the Klopex actually are evil.
We lose control. The ambulance goes into Art's house,
Yeah.
which I think is perfect.
It goes into Art's house, and then like one of the funniest fucking lines in that movie from when I was a kid, Hans is trying to like slink away, and then Bruce Dern's like, "Hey, Pinocchio,
Where do you think you're going?" Yeah.
It's like, why is he in that costume, dude? He's got like the feather and the hat. So they shot multiple endings and landed on that ending.
One of my favorite lines, which is it's an outdated line for sure now, but one of my favorite lines from that end sequence is because the ambulance careens into Art's house, and you're like, oh, thank God, the most meddlesome of them all finally got a little bit of comeuppance. Is his wife shows up, and you see her walking to the front door in the background, and I think it's
Bruce Dern.
Bruce Dern, who says like, "Hey, Art, your wife's home, and your house is on fire." And Art turns around and he says, "My wife is home."
It's because, every other like man in the movie has his partner who kind of like Carrie Fisher is the grounding force in this movie. She's the one that's like, you guys are being ridiculous. Like, leave these people alone. You know?
Yeah, she's the no fun character, but she's being realistic. Like, come on, let's just go say hi to him. Stop snooping around. Right?
And Art is the most unrestrained one because his wife is like out of town or something, you know?
And I guess doesn't know how to feed himself, so he's always over eating.
Oh yeah.
Ray and her food.
The thing that I find most interesting about this film and what I've always loved about it is that it is these like suburbanite grown men acting like 12-year-olds trying to solve like the neighborhood mystery. And, you know, there's a handful of scenes that like really kind of drive that point home. The first one is, you know, they're kind of like hanging out on Ray's driveway, just kind of like looking at the street, trying to like, okay, what are we gonna do today? And Art's like, you want to go down to the soda shop and get a couple of those sandwiches, you know, after he just ate all of his fucking food.
Oh, okay.
Ray's like, you want to see my new tools?
Oh yeah. I know the scene now. Yeah. He's like hanging out and he's like, you want to see my tools?
Yeah. It's just like, you know, that's like a kid would do that. Like, you want to see my new toys? You want to see this new thing I got?
I do that every time you come over. I'm like, you want to see this new movie I got?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the showing off of the new toy. You know, that's like the first thing that's like, all right, like these are just like grown kids, you know?
Yeah. I love that actually comes back later because it's the new tools are from Carol's father.
Yes.
And then when he's in the ambulance and Klopek's like, all right, I'm going to kill you now. Before that, he was like, I could help rebuild your house, man. I got some new tools. Carol's father gave them to me.
When I get out of prison.
I get out of prison. Yeah, that's
and then the next one is, you know, after that, they're like, you know, these neighbors, they're kind of weird. They're like out at odd hours of the night. Like, you know, the family that was there before, we didn't even really see them move out. So what's going on?
Yeah.
And so there's that whole scene where they're like kind of daring each other to ring the doorbell and like talk to the neighbors. 100% what kids would do. You know?
Right after the Pinocchio, Hans comes out and he's just
scratching his.
And they're like, all right, Ray. All right. Art's like, okay, Ray, go ahead and say hi to him. Here's your chance. You're losing your chance. Why don't you go say hi to him? Well, I mean, you're his next door neighbor. You share a property line with him.
Oh, there he goes. You're losing him.
You're losing him. Blaming him the whole time. He's like, okay, you know what? We're going to go. Like, now everyone's watching. Are you happy that everyone's watching? He's like, well, I guess we got to do it now. Yeah.
By the way, Pinocchio is played by Courtney Gaines, who is Malachi from Children of the Corn. Outlander.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, okay, forget Tom Hanks, right? Like, this movie is expertly cast.
No, I won't. You can't make me. No, yeah, that's good. That's a good pull.
You know, speaking of, you know, the body swap movies, Corey Feldman's in this movie too. He's like the neighborhood kid
from Dream a Little Dream. I'm aware. That was the same year. Can you believe that?
Yeah. I was looking at Corey Feldman's IMDb, and it's like this movie is maybe 2 or 3 years separated from the Goonies. So it's like, it's crazy how like much of like a teenager he looks like in this movie. Like, he looks like a big kid, you know, in the Burbs.
Yeah. I think it's the hair.
Oh yeah.
Really bigged up his hair. I actually don't mind him in this movie. He is that exact role of the burnout young neighbor that would irk, but not completely piss off the vet living next door. Where he's just like, Ricky, get that lame-o off your lawn. He's like, yeah, lame-o, get off my lawn. Oh, actually, Corey Feldman. Okay, my favorite line, which makes no fucking sense, is from the end too. When all the chaos is happening. I'm sorry. When all the chaos is happening, the pizza guy shows up and crashes into a tree and the pizzas fall out and you just hear him go, "Pizza guy's here."
off camera, you just hear, it's almost like it was an ADR line.
Yeah.
Pizza dude's here.
Which is such a Ninja Turtles thing for him to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm glad.
You have to wonder if it was a fucking direct reference to Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
No, yeah. One of my favorite lines is the Rumsfields are gardening.
Okay.
And Ricky, I think his name is.
Yeah.
He's like starting to paint like his deck or something, and he looks over and he's like, "Ms. Rumsfeld, no tan lines."
No tan lines. And then he's the paint. Did you see who does the paint?
Yeah. And then Rumsfeld goes, "That kid's a meatball." More kind of like kids stuff. There's that scene where Art and Rumsfeld are kind of calling up to Carol, Ray's wife, Carrie Fisher. And they're like, "Can Ray come out? Can Ray come out?" And she's like, "Boys, I've given you my answer," you know? And then she won't let him come out and play. And they like kind of like slink away, you know? They're like, if you pay attention to that scene, Art like kind of kicks the ground.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh shucks." Yeah. Gives it that. I love the she's like, "Yeah, I've given you my answer." And the answer is no, not until I see the man I married. Uh-huh. And Art's like, "Well, we ain't got that kind of time."
Another small one is Rumsfeld is Art and Ray are finally decide we're gonna go into their backyard and we're gonna dig up those bodies. I'm not leaving that house until I find a body. You know?
Yeah. Is this like when they cut the power and stuff? Like the ruse has been set up?
Yeah. This is around that time. Cool. But so they go into the house, and then Bruce Dern's character sets up like a surveillance nest on his roof.
Oh yeah.
He's got it all set up, and he's settled in, and he's like eating like animal crackers.
Yes, he's absolutely eating animal crackers.
He's like nibbling on the animal crackers. I'm like, he is just a big kid that has expensive toys, you know? Like he's living out his best fucking life. This is the best thing that could have happened to him on this Saturday, you know?
He's not all that different from Ricky, who's like, "Guys, you got to get over here. It's better than TV. It's better than the movies. Just trust me. I can't tell you." He's not all that different. He's just less social.
The whole movie is these suburbanites, who like you gotta just wonder, like they're just bored, and you mix that boredom in with like some suspicion of like the other, you know, and then you get this like really like funny setup of adult men behaving like children in their fucking streets. They're pulling garbage out into the street, you know.
Ray, they must have swapped it in the middle of the night. We checked all these garbages. Yeah, there's nothing in here.
Yeah, and so they've come to the conclusion that the Klopeks are killers, right? And because they find like a femur bone, right? He's like, it's a bone, a femur bone.
Yeah, I love that scene. I love that scene. Yeah, Art had just come up to talk to Ray. Ray's sleeping out back. He's like, Ray, I got to tell you something. I just slipped a note under the door. He's like, "I'm trying to fucking sleep.
It's not like I'm trying to get some sleep here." It's a very Tom Hanks line.
Yeah, he's like, "I wouldn't tell you if it wasn't important." So anyways, Ray, I slipped a note under the door. He's like, "No, you didn't." He's like, "I slipped a note under the older neighbor."
Yeah.
And like, "I slipped a note under his door. Now they're going to think it's me." Yeah. And the dog is like bringing a bone back and forth. And Art's just kind of like, "Oh yeah, here, go fetch." And then he finally goes, "Hold on. this is a femur, Ray. He's like, yeah, so what?
Yeah.
It's like,
this is a bone. He's like, it's a femur. Yeah, it's a femur bone.
he's like, well, look at it. It's not like a chicken bone or anything.
Yeah. And then they look over and there's a shape on the other side of the fence and it just tosses a piece of paper over. And they're like, what's that? And they say, it could be any. It's my note.
Yeah. Oh, he's a litter bug. Could be a receipt. Could be such and such. Oh, no, it's my note.
I fucking love that. He's so good.
Yeah.
He's I was like, what else have I seen him in? He's Cindy's dad in Scary Movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course he is.
Yeah.
He's like, now remember, Daddy's a little fucked up right now. Or something. It's like, I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, you got to stomp on it before.
Fucking drug pushing advice.
Yeah.
You got to stomp on it before you cut it. You know, that it still remains pure. Like, oh, thanks, Dad. Oh yeah, I love that. I love that scene so much with the bone, especially the zoom in sequence. Yeah, it's him. And then Tom Hanks is still after it stops.
So, like they think that their neighbor's been killed, right? And so that kind of sparks this mystery, this like predetermined thing, right? Like they know that Walter has been killed by the Klopeks, and they're gonna go find proof. And it's really funny that when at the end of the movie, right before the house explodes, Walter is being driven home.
Yeah.
And I guess it's because he had like a stroke or something and he's been in the hospital.
Yeah.
And when he comes out, Art over the radio goes, or maybe it's Brewster and I don't remember, but they're like, Ray, we have a huge problem.
Yeah.
Like it's not, yay, the Walter's alive. We've got a fucking problem.
Yeah, and Hanks is down in the basement, like shoveling mud up under the radio while he's giving that. So,
so
he didn't hear it. He was just like, "We got a huge problem, Ray."
But Olson, the screenwriter, Dana Olson, Olson himself calls the movie a child's adventure, in which the adults are really the children. Which,
I agree.
As I was looking at that, I was like, wow, there really is like a secret reason why these are great double feature combos.
Yeah.
Because in Big, it's about a child kind of entering an adult's role. And in the Burbs, it's about adults behaving like children.
Yes.
It's so, and they both have Tom Hanks in them, It's great.
Yeah. It's almost like we're brilliant for pairing them together.
I think the movies are great from those like different perspectives of like kind of basically like infantilization,
Yeah. I think that's what makes them stronger.
And what makes them even stronger than that is that like Tom Hanks is the guy, right?
Yeah.
He's so likable and relatable, and you can entertain that youthfulness, I think, more than like you would with a Robert De Niro. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or even if the movie was, if The Burbs, for example, was told from like Art's perspective, I don't know. I feel like it could get kind of tiresome because he doesn't have anyone to ground him. And he just wants to run along with the fantasy. When Hanks is reading that book on demonology, he's like, la, la, la. He's like, I don't want to hear your conspiracies. La, 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 la. And he's like, Ray, you're chanting. Ray, you're chanting right now. Look at the book. Satan is our pal. Satan is good. So he's bought into it fully. So it's hard to, like, that's the perfect point of view to take a side character. Just like, this guy. But Hanks is like, no, I don't want to believe it, but I will entertain you because we're friends until something comes along that convinces him otherwise. Hanks brings that believability. He sells it.
Yeah.
Hands down. Yeah.
He is probably cinema's best everyman. He's likable. He's relatable. We can entertain his youthfulness. Kind of like Mr. Rogers.
Oh, okay.
who he fucking played in a
Yes.
biopic about Mr. Rogers.
Yeah. Oh, I thought so. My eyebrows being raised was like, oh, you're gonna call out The Thing. Do you remember that Mr. Rogers is in The Burbs?
Oh my fucking God.
He's watching Mr. Rogers after his nightmare.
It makes so much sense now.
Yep. The most prophetic shot in the movie. Yeah. It's like I like the shots on the TV that lead to the nightmare too.
Yeah.
Are from The Exorcist
And
Texas Chainsaw 2.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, yeah, when that came up.
one more thing I wanted to point out about the movie before we get out of here. I always noticed that the son in this movie is such a minor character. You almost forget he's in it. Almost like the dad character in Big.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When they go, what are we going to do with David? I'm like, who?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even remember his character's name. That's how little he's in the movie and how little impact he has on the story. You think like, oh, it's suburbia. Of course he's a dad. Of course he has a kid. The kid's set dressing, right? But it goes deeper than that. I learned.
Oh,
Tom Hanks actually did not want to play a dad. He pushed to, I think, reduce the interaction that he had with his son in the movie.
okay.
Because he didn't want to appear to be a dad. I think he didn't want to be typecast as a dad. Oh. So, the movie came out at a point in Tom Hanks's career where he was very mindful and intentional of how he wanted to be perceived. And he didn't want to be seen as a dad. And you look at these two movies that he's playing. He's playing a very youthful role in both of these movies. So knowing that, you kind of appreciate that his likability, is more than just who Tom Hanks is. It's a persona, right? It's a crafted persona.
Yeah.
Not that it's malicious by any stretch of the imagination, but Tom Hanks's likability is like Charlie Chaplin's slapstick. It's just his fucking thing,
Yeah. And it's not happenstance. It's a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what makes him a great actor.
I agree. I agree.
And there we are. Big and The Burbs, two great Tom Hanks movies. They're a blast. I don't think I had seen Big all the way through until we watched it together.
Yeah. And I don't think I might have seen some scenes from the extended cut that I ended up watching, but never fully. And I'm glad I did, because I will avoid it at all costs now, because the theatrical cut is just so good.
Yeah.
It's so good
tight.
in comparison. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed that one, and be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on socials at 2 Certified Bangers, and have a week.
Cool. See you guys later.